just sales. Let's just look at our day. The newspaper lands on the floor. Somebody has brought it. We were watching television until midnight. We were watching Aaj Tak, CNBC, CNN, IBN. We've seen what's happened to Shashi Tharoor. We've seen what happened to his wife. Everything we know. But we still want that morning newspaper, don't we? And if it doesn't come, what do we say? The day the newspaper comes, we never say, "Wah, kya baat hai, aaj paper aa gaya." What do we say? "Kya chhe gulabi chapu." Isn't it? And we go up and down, we go in a tizzy if the cup of tea doesn't come on time because the doodh wala hasn't come. And we realize that we've forgotten to brush our teeth. First 4 things. You see that clock? The alarm clock. It's a good old-fashioned avatar of your snoozing mobile phone, which you keep pressing every 5 minutes in the hope that you'll grab a little more sleep. These 4 things we use in the morning without even realizing that someone has come and sold us this thing, or we bought it from a shop, and that some salesman has probably made us begin our day on a bright note. Every moment is actually a sales moment from moment 1 in your day. And one can't emphasize the importance of it. There are so many things on your screen that you see, food, something to bathe with, something to speak with, something to plug and play, something that you consume, and then of course the bed. Our day consists of so many things, but imagine a single day in your life when you don't get to move, when you don't get breakfast or lunch or dinner or sleep or travel or talk or water. My wife was telling me a very interesting example this morning. She said, यूरेका फोर्ब्स के सेल्समैन को सारी दुनिया गाली देती है. वो आके डरा देता है, मैडम आप जो पानी पी रहे हैं वो जहर है, and things like that. But the day we moved from Baroda to Ahmedabad, the day we just got our furniture in, the first thing she said was, वो यूरेका वालों को बुलाओ ना, washing machine तो कल भी fix कर लेंगे, लेकिन पानी. So what are we talking about? We can't do without certain basic necessities. And who do we think brings them to all of us? Well, we take things for granted. We forget to even remember who the person is. It is the salesman. And how do we treat the salesman? Just look at the door on your screen and see what's happening to it. The "I am busy, don't disturb me, you put me off" kind of signals that are conveyed to you. A closed door, a smug expression, and sometimes even worse. Spare a thought for the salesperson. But maybe most of us have this attitude towards them for a very specific reason. And maybe that is the reason. You heard of this famous cliched comment, no? Foot in the door, salesman. And the foot is so firmly in the door that at times it just breaks open the door. And a harried and hassled homemaker ends up picking up that vacuum cleaner. She has tears of joy in her eyes, thinking, now I'm going to be the queen of my house. The bai is not going to rule me anymore. And the husband has tears in his eyes as he writes out the check. And that is a product that is actually lying in the corner of the house, literally gathering dust. The purpose for which it was bought, but gathering dust in a slightly different way. But the question is, I'm going to ask you a question now. Is it because there is something about this salesperson that bothers you? What is the reason? Is it his behavior? Is it his lack of manners? Is it his lack of knowledge? A lot of salespeople probably don't even know their own product. Forget knowing the customer. Is it his lack of grace? What is it? Well, perhaps it's time to change that. And do we, as customers, do anything about changing it? And do we, as salespeople, even think about changing it so that people look at us from a different perspective? I am going to ask you a question. And the question is, and I'd like to have an answer. The hands can go up. How many of you sell? So what do the others do? They buy. Oh, we all buy. But I think each one of us sells. Probably you're looking at it in the narrow, straight jacket of a salesperson. That I carry a product, I go and sit in front of a customer, I con him, I convince him. That's what they write. They don't say convince him. Don't use the word convince, because convince begins with a con, C-O-N. A con man. Never convince anyone. Persuade if you want, explain if you want, demonstrate if you want. And demonstrate, I don't mean hold up that placard. Demonstrate the product. I'm going to tell you all, we all sell. How many of you married a spouse of your own choice? Wonderful, all of you sold. How many of you told your parents that you wanted to take X course and not Y course in school or college? You sold. There are only two people, I guess, who don't come into the ambit of sales. One is your mother. You don't need to sell to your mother. She can read your face. I just have to look at my wife's face to know that she knows what her son wants for lunch. Doesn't matter what the husband wants. She can read his mind. And the other person you can't sell to is your wife. You need to use something else to sell to your wife. But we'll come to that later on. You sell to her before you get married. After you get married, it's very difficult to sell. Dev bhai, you agree with me? So I have someone who agrees with me. He doesn't always agree with me on most things. On this point, he agrees with me. Okay. I'll clarify this to you. We all sell, and I'll probably give you some instances. But to come back to this particular subject. Okay, for a minute, let's all forget that we don't sell. Let's all forget that we sell. Let's just act as consumers. We get upset with the customers, we get upset with the salesperson, we get upset with the intermediaries, we get upset with distributors. How would you like to be sold to? How would you like the salesperson to talk to you? What would you expect from the salesperson? May I hear something from you? What would you like to get from the salesperson? Sorry? Politeness, okay. The right advice, okay.
Right timing.
Right timing.
Very important.
Absolutely important. Value for money. And in Gujarat, mein to it be a little more than value for money, right? Absolutely. Wonderful. Somebody talked about clarity, did he? Yes, yes. Clarity, especially when you go to Bosch and Lomb, isn't it? Clarity.
After sales service. After sales service.
After sales service. Trust. The other word, a little stronger word probably, faith. He walks his talk. When he says something, he lives up to it. When he says it, he does it, right? That's what you want, don't you? Absolutely. What else? Yes, sir.
You want him to be your friend who can take you into market.
So the ultimate destination is confidence. When I buy from this guy, I can shut my eyes and buy it because I know he's going to give me what I want.
I think it falls into faith category only because we trust that ground. So it's a part of faith. That's what.
So probably why you're telling me all this is perhaps there is a huge disconnect with what the company may be saying in its advertisements, in its claims, in its letters, in its website or wherever, and what the salesperson demonstrates or delivers, right? Because the face of the organization is the salesperson. You're not interacting with the entire, you're not interacting with Mr. Chona or with Mr. Desai. You're interacting with the person who's selling the ice cream or the tea. Right? Okay. Now, the question is, how will that change happen and what will you change about him? Well, this is what you expect, but how does that change happen? I think we all have a role. Whoever is into sales, whoever is into managing sales teams, whoever is into running the business, and whoever acts as a customer also probably has a responsibility for that. Because let's understand one thing. When are we the happiest? Generally, when are we the happiest? At what times of the year? What kind of scenarios? When are we the happiest? Sorry? Celebration, what a lovely word. But the only problem is, the product that I associate most with the word celebration, unfortunately, cannot be sold in Gujarat. It goes pop, you know. And what a funny product. It's a funny product, this champagne. It's actually a lousy product. I'll tell you why it is lousy. You first of all take the bottle, subject it to a cold torture by putting it into a bucket of ice for a long time. You pull it out, then you aim the bottle at the guy you don't like, and let the cork fly so that it hits him in the stomach. And then you do this and quickly sprinkle 50% of the champagne over all your friends, making sure that they get drenched. 50% वेस्ट कर दिया और शैंपेन का बॉटल मैंने सुना है मेरे एनुअल पगार से थोड़ा ज्यादा है. A good champagne. Now, whatever is left is quickly taken sip by sip and the bottle is passed on between people. Nobody drinks it up completely. अगर Hayward's 5000 होता तो मैं आपके साथ शेयर भी नहीं करता. Isn't it? So if I'm thirsty, I'm not drinking champagne. If I want nourishment, I'm not drinking champagne. For that I have Red Bull. Isn't it? Probably the only word I can associate with champagne is celebration. You're right, we are happiest when we are celebrating. But then what have we done? Immediately click, right click, copy, paste onto your profile on Facebook saying, I celebrated. Isn't it? Whether you really enjoyed that moment or not, you want your friends to see that you were there. So what are you doing? You're expressing the happiness that someone just loosened your purse. Second round, when we are happy, when we got that new car. Third, when we probably got a nice dress. Fourth, when the tailor made us look like the complete man with that raiment suit. Next day onwards, you're going to become the incomplete man. That's a different thing. But the point is, every time we spend money, we feel happy. When we shop, we feel happy. A lot of us are in the retail business. We realize that the customer is thrilled when he buys something. So in other words, the salesperson is actually contributing to your happiness. We are not willing to recognize it. The happiest moments are in school days when that ice cream cart pusher gets you your orange dolly or your mango dolly or something like that, isn't it? There's even a film song which says that I bring ice cream into your life and I bring sweetness into your life, isn't it? So what are we talking about? We are talking about happiness that's already coming, but we need to recognize it a little better and reward the sales guy, right? Okay. I would like to share with you something. Friends of mine, people who attended my sales training workshops may probably know it by heart. Some of them are going to say, "Fir leke baith gaye ye kaagaz." But to a lot of you, I think it may be new, and I'd like you to bear with me for a couple of minutes while I share it. In fact, why don't we all look at it as some kind of an oath. Just like people who enter the medical profession take the oath of Hippocrates and say, I'm going to be a good doctor. Or just as politicians say that, मैं इस देश की, what is that? Ekata or Akhandata and various other things, that they say in the oath. This I wish every person who sells anything in life takes this in the morning and reads it out aloud to himself and then starts implementing it. I'll just take a couple of minutes. I'm a salesman. I'm proud to be a salesman because more than any other man, I and thousands of others like me built my country. The man who builds a better air conditioner or mousetrap or car would starve to death if he waited for people to come looking for these products. Regardless of how good or how needed the product or service might be, it has to be sold. Edison had to install his electric light free of cost in an office building. The first sewing machine was smashed to pieces by a mob. Samuel Morse had to plead before 10 sessions of parliament before people even looked at his telegraph machine. People didn't go around demanding these products, they had to be sold. They needed thousands of salesmen, trailblazers, pioneers, people who could persuade with the same effectiveness as the inventor could invent. As a salesman, I have done more to make India what it is today than any other person in history. I've educated more people, created more jobs, taken away boredom from the laborer's work, given more profits to businessmen, and I've given more people a fuller and richer life. I've dragged prices down, pushed quality up, and made it possible for you to enjoy the comforts and luxuries of the products that you use. I've healed the sick, given security to the aged, and put thousands of young men and women through college. I've made it possible for inventors to invent, for factories to work, and for aircraft to fly. Whether in future you live in prefabricated houses or eat hotter, tastier, or faster cooked food, or travel by supersonic cars to the moon, depends on me. The buttered toast that you had this morning for breakfast was in a baker's oven last evening because I made sure that a farmer's wheat reached the mill, which made it into flour, and the flour was delivered to the baker. Without me, the wheels of industry would grind to a halt, and with that, jobs, marriages, politics, and freedom of thought would be a thing of the past. I'm a salesman, and I'm both proud and grateful that as such, I serve my family, my fellow men, and my country. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how you felt. It took you quite a while to clap. But every time I read it, I have this very strange feeling here telling me, look, man, you are one of the chosen few selected to come here and do good for people. Because the day you don't sell, let me ask you a question. What do you think would happen, ladies and gentlemen, if no salesperson in the country sold anything to any customer just for a day? Water wasn't sold, power wasn't sold, the cinema ticket wasn't sold, medicines weren't sold, fuel wasn't sold, food wasn't sold, boxes weren't sold, packaging material wasn't sold. What do you think would happen?
Maybe the entire process will be stopped for a week, for a day, because saving is a part and parcel of life.
Just for a day.
For a day. It will impact next day as well, because it was not done yesterday.
What do you think the newscaster may be saying first thing tomorrow morning on television with that grim look on her face?
Maybe there will be dash of seriousness, or big thing happened yesterday, and because of this today they will be having big time troubles as well.
Yes, possibly the newscaster may be saying, कल के इस तकलीफ की वजह से जनजीवन अस्त व्यस्त हो गया, या इतने करोड़ों का, there's a very interesting word, इतने का कारोबार का, what is that, ठप हो गया, or something like that. चलिए, हम ना मनमोहन सिंह है, ना मॉन्टेक सिंह आलूवालिया है, ना चिदम्बरम है, हम इतने स्टेचर वाले लोग नहीं हैं. मैं तो एक बहुत ही सिंपल चीज आप लोगों के साथ डिस्कस करना चाहता हूं, और वो ये है, मेरे ख्याल से बहुत सारे ये जो डेली वेज वाले लेबरर होते हैं ना, उनके बच्चे उस दिन भूखे सोए होंगे. So if you sell, do you realize where your responsibility is? It's not about the incentive you take home. It's not about the salary that you get on time or not. It's the fact that a lot of laborers' kids are not going to get milk for the day. Every time one goes out to sell, even if he has this thought in mind, I think he realizes, like Sachin Tendulkar takes his bat and goes out into the middle, he realizes that he's got to hold up the innings for India, in spite of the fact there are a lot of batsmen around. Because the problem sometimes could be this way, that each sales guy probably thinks, आज मैं नहीं जाऊंगा तो चलेगा, कोई और तो जा रहा होगा. What if every salesperson was thinking like that? So, that is the salesperson's oath. How many of you would like to, I can arrange to send you a copy, how many of you would like to have a copy of this oath? Oh, wonderful, I'm so glad so many hands went up. You don't even have to worry about it, because I will arrange for you to get this here itself. I'll tell you how. So this is the first thing I wanted to share with you, the salesman's oath. This paper adorns many walls in many offices in Dubai, in Australia, in Amsterdam, in London, and so many parts of India. Somebody just called me up in the evening from Pune and said, sir, I look at it every morning because it's there on my office bulletin board, and I ask my boys to keep looking at it.